Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and to my new studio. Firstly, apologies for the slight echo in my audio. I'm still getting moved in here, so although I've got stuff behind me, I've already sorted out my little painting corner. I've still got a lot of things to do in the rest of the room, and just please bear with me, the audio will get better. But the last video that I released was all about cleaning and organising my pastel palette. And you guys had a lot of questions about that. So I decided to make a follow-up video. And today I'm going to try and answer all of your questions and pretty much show you how an organised palette of colour can help you in your work. So you've got to this point, you've organised your pastels. What do you do next? So I hope that you find this helpful. Please do subscribe here on YouTube if you find this video helpful, and take a look through all of my other playlists where I've got lots of soft pastel related content. Then if you'd like even more, come and join me over on Patreon to access my full library of real-time tutorials and lots more. So in my last video, you saw me clean and organize all of my pastels, moving them from smaller clicked together trays that I've stored them in for many years, putting them all together in these larger trays. And the first question that I got asked is obviously where I got the trays from, and I should have said that in the previous video, but the trays are basically just wooden lap trays, so they're not made specifically for soft pastel. I just bought these from a local home store, but I know that you can get very similar on Amazon as well. There are specific trays made for storing pastels, but to be honest, they're not that much different from these really. And you can, if you wish, make little dividers to put up the trays if you want, but I was just happy to use the full space of the tray to organize all my colors together. So if you're interested in using something similar, all I did was measure the space that I have on my tables here and tried to find some trays that fit that nicely. So the next question I had, quite a few times actually, is how to keep track of all my colors, because as you can see here, I've removed the paper from quite a lot of the pastels. So how do I know what code name belongs to the pastel? If I want to reorder the color, for example, or in my case, when I'm talking about colors throughout my tutorials, how do I know what color it is that I'm using if it's not got its paper on it? One of the ways is with my lovely Unison color chart. So Unison actually sell these lovely color charts. I've just stuck mine on the wall here. I've velcroed it onto my wall, as I always do, because I want to be able to take the chart off the wall quickly and make use of it. So I'm lazy, I bought the Unison chart, but you can do this also. So each time you buy a new pastel stick, have a little notepad where you keep a swatch of the color and its code name, just like it is here on the wall chart. And I've got this one for Unison, but of course I have other brands of pastel as well. So I too have started a little notepad with all of the other brands that I don't have a nice fancy wall chart for. So just keep a record of the colors that you buy as you buy them. Put a little swatch in a notepad, write its code name beside it, and then you can always figure out what any one of your colors are by comparing it to your swatch. And that leads me on to the next question actually, as it's quite linked to that question. And that is, do I mix different brands of pastel together? So you can see these are mostly all soft pastels. I actually don't have many hard pastels. So for me, it was easy to just put all my soft pastels together. But yes, I do have different brands here as well, because although I have mostly Unisons, you can see I've got Art Spectrum, Richardson pastels, Mount Vision. I've got quite a few Terry Ludwigs, which you can always spot because they're slightly square in shape. So yes, I have mixed together all the brands. You'll see over in the pinks here that I've got a few different shaped pastels there as well from different brands. So certain colors, I find that I want to branch out into other brands and get myself a nicer selection of that color. And by putting them all together, that really shows me my full palette that's available. For years, I had my little sets of pastels all intact and different brands all kept separately, but I always found it difficult. For example, when I went to search for a pink, my pinks weren't all in the same place, so it was hard for me to compare all the pinks that I have in one place in order to choose the right one. So for me, it just makes more sense to have a clear view of my whole palette that's available to me rather than them sitting a little bit disjointed in different places. The next question is all about grey. Someone asked, what about the colour grey? There are so many greys, I don't know where to put them all. And this is a perfect opportunity to just use my palette here to give you a quick demo. So when most of us think of grey, we probably imagine something like Unison 16, for example. That's quite a dull, light grey tone. And especially when we put it next to perhaps one of the more vibrant blues. You put it next to these blue tones and it really does look quite greyed out. But let's take our grey and bring it over next to the oranges. And what happens then when I hold this grey colour next to orange? Doesn't that enhance the blue? Doesn't this still look like a blue then? So it only really looks grey when we compare it to a more vibrant blue. Yet when we put it next to its opposite colour, that really brings out the blue in it. So to me, this is just one grey that I have. This is blue grey. But if I look about my collection, I have greys everywhere because grey really has a form in every single colour. So the grey tones to me are just colours that have had grey added to them. So for example, I can take the vibrance out of any of my colours and find a grey version, but this is still blue. This is still blue grey. So this is my more blue grey. I can pick up a grey that has slight more lilac tone in it, like A32 for example from Unison. So hopefully you can see on camera there just the difference in the colours. And really what we're doing there is picking a grey version of a colour like this. That's the one that would be more related to the blue grey, and then my lilac tinted grey possibly coming more from more vibrant lilac colour. So hopefully those are coming out on screen. So you'll notice in all of these trays they've all got light tints at the top, and then most of the colours go through a sort of greyed out area where you've got like the lighter greyed tints, vibrant versions of the colour, more strongly hued colours, higher chroma, right down to the darker tones at the bottom. So you've got grey versions of every colour. Let's move across into the green section, for example. Some of these colours are actually called grey. So here's grey 5 from Unison. And it's like quite a minty kind of green colour. Certainly when you take this grey colour into the purples and the blues, you can see that it's got a green tint to it. Let's compare it with some of the lighter tints that are similar in tonal value. So this one's green grey. And if we continue across even into the warmer colours, because we commonly associate the colour grey with being cold, whereas that's not the case, because sometimes you need a colour that is slightly greyed out but is also warm. The amount of times I need a warm grey is just as often as needing cool greys. So these are my cool greys. The greys in this tray are sort of a mixture somewhere in between cool and warm, because of course you come over into the very light tints, and some of these are slightly greyed out as well. You know, you've got like BE1, for example, quite a dull light tint. And then we come over into the warmer box still. We've got the warm light tints at the top here, but then you've got weird colors such as A27, for example. Now this I describe as a sort of weird grey, warm grey tone that I use so much in my work. So there are literally greys everywhere. They just are disguised as all the colors. So for me, working in color means finding color in all of the tonal values that I'm trying to create in my painting. Now, if I was working with a monochrome medium, then my greys mean something else. They're really just in terms of tonal value, so how light or dark the color is. Whereas when you're working with color, you're also thinking of the temperature, so not just tonal value, how light or dark something is. And now that leads me on to talk a little bit about tonal value. So I did an interesting thing. Once I'd finished putting the boxes together, I took a photo of them and then I changed the photograph into grayscale just to see how well I had done at creating a gradient from light to dark. And the results are often surprising because it's very difficult to compare, for example, two colors that are entirely different. One's really vibrant, one's really dull, but they may well be the same tonal value when you grayscale the whole thing. So by doing that, by looking at this in grayscale, I was very quickly able to see, for example, here in my box of reds, I seem to be missing reds in between the vibrant reds here that come out kind of mid-tone when you grayscale it, and my darker red earth colors. So you can instantly see that I've got a bit of a jump in my collection here. So it's also a useful idea to look at things in grayscale to really analyze the tonal values. And this is something that your eye gets better at seeing over time. So out of the three boxes, I would actually say that my blue-violet box is the most successful one in terms of creating that light to dark and cool to warm flow. And that's simply because I have lots of blues and purples. It's the pastel color that I probably have the most extensive range of colors in. And all this shows me is that I don't have quite as good a range of red tones. So everyone's palette is going to turn out a little bit different based on what colors you have. And that doesn't matter if you end up with a perfect rainbow spectrum that looks beautiful. The idea is that you know what pastel colors you have and what parts of the spectrum you are well covered in. So don't stress if you don't have many pastels, if your range of colors won't result in a beautiful rainbow spectrum that looks perfect. The idea of doing this is just so that you know what colors you have and where they fall into on the spectrum. The next thing that I got commented quite a lot was that the palette looks lovely, but how could you possibly keep this palette looking like this all the time if you're going to use it? And what I tend to do always when I'm painting is to take a separate box. And what I use actually are the lids from old pastel sets. So this is a box of 36 pastels from Unison, and I've got a little piece of the foam that actually came in the box still in there so that it's nice to set the pastels on. And this makes a wonderful palette box. So when it comes time to do a painting, as you can see, I have set up a new painting. I've got my line sketch onto my pastel paper. I've got my image here. so that I can sit here and choose what colors I think I might use, because I always choose some colors before I make a start. I want to put some thought into the colors that I'm going to use and how they look together. I also don't want to have to keep stopping as soon as I start to paint, stopping to choose more colors as I go. So I prefer to have a little palette of colors on the go from the very start. And if you're interested in seeing how I actually do that, how I take my photo reference, analyze the colors that I'm seeing, I kind of have a little checklist of things that I go through when I'm thinking about the palette. And I have lots of videos already here on my YouTube channel, choosing palettes for all sorts of different subject matters. So do go and check some of those out if that's part of the process that you really struggle with. So today's task for me is to make a start painting something in my new studio space, make use of my newly organized pastels. So my first task of today, after I finish filming, is to choose the palette for my little donkey. And it's so nice now because I can see all of my colors so clearly, and I can literally just go around choosing colors based on what I see in my photo reference. And then when I'm done at the end of the painting, I will clean all of the pastels in this box and simply pop them back into the main palette of colors. So in essence, I should not get these ones too dirty, and they should not get disorganized very easily. Another tip would be to have something that you can cover this main palette over with when you're not using it, so that will just keep general dust and, in my case, animal hairs out of your pastels while you're not using them. Other than that, they should stay pretty organized like this for a long time. And then it's really only maybe once every year or two that I will take them all and clean them and put them back in nice order, but they should stay like this for a while, hopefully. So on that note, I am going to leave you guys and make a start on my next demo, which is a lovely little donkey from right outside my window here. I've got so many animals passing by my studio, and I really love to paint some of them. So I'm going to paint a little donkey demo next. Right now I'm going to choose my palette and make a start. So I hope that you find this helpful. I always like to share not just the how, but the why as well, why it's useful to do something, how you can incorporate that into your own art practice. So I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that you will have fun trying to organize your own pastels into some kind of spectrum or whatever way you decide to do it. It's all about being able to access all of your colors easily, and it doesn't really matter what way you organize them as long as it's helpful to you in your painting process. So if you did find this helpful, then please do remember to hit subscribe here on YouTube. Also check me out over on Patreon if you would like even more in-depth tutorials on soft pastel. But thanks so much for watching this here. Until next time, happy pasteling.